everyone. How are you? I hope you're all doing well. Um, Please like and subscribe to my channel. I lost a few subbies in the last few days. I don't know what I've done, but I gotta tell ya, I keep going to the channels that I like and the ones that I have a buddy that I had my other channel um, with on a different topic. And, she's my bestie across the pond. And I went to hers and I was unsubscribed. And it's like, okay, what? And she was really as a creator, you really watch it until you can get to 1,000, because at 1,000 you can start to be monetized. Um, there's certain things that you have to do to get that, and as you all know, I value free speech and the freedom of my mouth more than I do any money. And so if it comes to it and I can't get monetized, I might go to Patreon. I have been building my other channel there in case my channel gets taken down again, as you all know. But I don't want to be somebody who asks for money, and um, I want the money from YouTube. I know that they're doing commercials um on my feed because I know that people have asked me about them, and you don't get revenue for that until after you have 1,000 subscribers and you're monetized. So please make sure that you're subscribed to me, because like I say, sometimes, and I don't know, maybe my fat fingers unsubscribe from people. I don't know. Or it just happens where they go through and they sweep and make you resubscribe. I have no idea, because it's been like three different places that I go to often that were not subscribed. I added the interview in Dodge, the Wisconsin interview with Tambergler, to the playlist that I have, the Watts Easy Listening. So that's that playlist where you can just put it on when you're thinking of going to sleep, and what do you know, I'll still be babbling by the morning. Um, I do put people to sleep, I'm telling you. I make people poop and I make them sleep. It's what I do. I relax them, whether it's their colons or their brains, apparently. Like I say, it didn't work out so well when I was a CNA. I dreamed of being on the other side of that suppository, but um, I just would come onto my shift and know that, okay, I'm going to have to do a full bed change on every single person. So here's my little trolley with full bed changes for everyone, because that's how we're going to deal with it. Right? Except for the day that I walked in on the 93-year-old. Did I tell you guys? I haven't told you guys about this. I don't think. Because, okay, so when I was a CNA and I was like 20, I was super cute, and I was really upset about my weight because I could not get that last 5 pounds off from my second child. I was weighing in at 93 pounds and so self conscious about that because I was at my best at the 89 pounds. Um, my mother in law had a very strict chart, and she was a very strict Catholic raised nurse from Canada. And she made sure that I followed the chart that said if you're 5 foot tall, you can be 100 pounds. That's it. And so where I was like 4'11", I needed to be only at like 95. So I was always creeping up to be obese at that. This was my mindset at age 20. When I woke up every day at 6 a.m. to go and wipe shit from people's asses as a CNA, and the best CNA you could ever find. And I went to those thrift stores and I got those 1960s nurse dresses, the solid white. And I wore my support hose and my practical shoes with a little rubber heel. I mean, the only thing I didn't have was a little nurse hat. And I wore those nurses' dresses like I was the shit, man. And literally I was. So one day, I was doing a double. I love doing doubles on my last day in, so I could just, sleep through the next days, and I'd have that bonus. I think I was making a whopping $6.35 then as a CNA. but my scores were higher than any employee in that building. So that had qualified me to go up to $7.02. But because my scores were so much higher than everybody else, they said that would not be fair. So it was what it was, and I accepted the 635. But anyway, here I was, Nurse Tabitha, and doing the double shift, and it's the nighttime. And I walk in to this grumpy old bat's room. She never talked or did anything. She was just, I mean, she shouldn't, I mean, she had no quality of life, okay? I walked in her room and I mean, I skidded into third base, man. I just skid into something. I didn't know what it was. The lights were out still. And I'm like, whoa, what is this, right? And so I get back, sturdy myself, and go over and turn on the light. And to my horror, there were just balls of shit everywhere. And they were all over the curtain, all over her, all over the floor, and everywhere. And she's sitting up there with this, grin, and she was just digging out poop balls from her butt and throwing them at anybody and everything. And oh God, that stench! I could not get that stench out of that 100-year-old shit for days. It was just in my nose, in my brain, in my hair. Oh my God! I just had to take her to a shower and clip her nails, try and get out her nails. I mean, oh my God, this is what the life of a CNA. Okay, so it was terrible. But obviously she hadn't shit in like 50 years, and that's the power I have on people. And you know what? If I had been friends with SW, she hadn't shit in 3 weeks. All it would have taken was, me to have been on her Facebook, and she would have messaged me, and she would have. I'm like the walking Miralax. Sorry if I grossed you all out. Sorry. But that's the reality of what a CNA does. So if you have not yet thanked the CNA in your life, please do. Because they work so freaking hard and they don't get any thanks. And, I have all of my kudos and stuff, and I was looking through my stuff, and I moved all of my stuff out of an old filing cabinet and stuff into my main desk. And I have, all of these kudos and stuff. And, from this one nurse, she was just so proud of me. And she wanted me to go to nursing school so bad. And I just couldn't afford it that time. I was a few years before I could afford it. And then y'all know that my latex allergy ultimately made me have to quit my RN program. But anyway, she wrote out this thing, and she said she was just absolutely mesmerized by me because we each had 8 patients, and when someone called in sick, there was no one for that other side. And so that other side would go uncared for. And that wasn't going to happen on my watch. And so it was like, okay, I went from 8 patients to 16. Okay, how do I prioritize? And I did it. I took care of all 16. I had everybody's beds made and mitered, the corners mitered, and everybody was dressed up for breakfast and ready to go, and everything by the right time, by everything. And this nurse wrote up this thing that she just never seen anybody able to take care of 16 people and do everything right and prioritize. And I was like, well, thank you. Because, it's like when the money wasn't there, the thanks were enough. And I was employee of the month so many times. But now you really don't see CNAs like you did, because sadly, people who come over here from other countries who were, in their own country, they were nurses, some even doctors, but they can't test out here, so they are CNAs. Many don't speak English, and I feel that's really hard on the severely elderly and those with Alzheimer's. Sometimes the communication barrier can get very upsetting, frustrating. But like I say, just thank that CNA in your life when you do see them. When you go to the hospital and you see that one person running around, that's the CNA. Or ultimately, when I was in the nursing program and I worked at the hospital, I was tested out for everything. So I could do everything except for pass meds. So as we call it, technician. So I had a nurse above me, and then I still had 6 to 8 patients. Sometimes when they were really high acuity, we would have 4, but um, the nurse has her stuff to do, and I had my stuff I had to do, and it's all hands on for those nursing assistants. And when the families come in and they're really rude, it's it's even harder when the family comes in and they're really nice and they notice the one who actually takes care of their relative and thanks them. That's everything. So, where are we at? I uploaded the Tamburglar interview, added that to the playlist. Okay, I told you guys about that. Okay. So, there's that channel. Like I say, I think it's called Live Abuse Free, and it has on there, it says that this woman is saying that the Watts felt inferior to the Ruse. And so the Watts sued the Ruse for the $450,000 insurance policy, life insurance policy. I cannot find proof of that. If somebody can please find proof of that, please send it to me at tabithajane0@gmail.com. Now, what I can find is this. I can find that Sandra Rzucek, Frank Rzucek, oh, okay. Okay, so the way they listed this is Sandra Rzucek, Franklin Rzucek Sr. as personal representative of the estate of Shanann Catherine Watts, and the plaintiff is Christopher Lee Watts. This was filed November 19th, 2018 at 10:20 a.m. What date was he sentenced? Let me Google that really quick. I can't right now. I thought he was sentenced that day. That date sounds really familiar. So once he was sentenced, did they have this back up to be filed that very day? I think so. So what I want to do is show you guys this document, because I don't think that the Watts did that. If they did, and I'm in error, I'm happy to admit my mistakes. You guys know that I will. I have COVID brain. I'm older than dirt. I'm 50 years old. And I sometimes forget things. And sometimes, quite honestly, I mean, I've made over 100 videos now, as you know. And I can get mixed up on the details. I really can. Because there is a lot of contradictory information. I try to keep it straightforward. I know so much more than I did when I began. My early videos, I sometimes want to delete because I said things that I no longer believe as truth. But I think that it's important because it shows my growth, and it shows my journey of growth in listening to somebody who I thought was trustworthy, due to the fact that they state that they are an attorney. And within that, you have a code of conduct as an attorney, and that is to withhold the truth, uphold the truth, and be a warrior for justice. And as my life turned, and I will be able to tell you guys the way that my life went backwards and forwards, and how it was that I ended up then starting law school at some point, how that had to end because I got sepsis and had a massive heart attack at the age of 36, etc., etc. So it will all make sense. I'm just enjoying the fact right now where I don't have to be humiliated for my looks and have my family doxxed and everything else that will happen. It will happen. But for right now, I really appreciate you guys all just standing by me and trusting that I am real. I'm a real person. I have feelings just like anybody else. And like I say, I have a bad experience of when I didn't know that I was hideous and cross-eyed and whatnot until I was told so by the internet. So, and I've got to lose some pounds. I'm fat right now. And the internet will tell me I'm fat. Oh, what's her name? Christina Applegate. You know, from Married with Children. She was on another show which I can't remember the title of. It's a really good show. And that's the thing with my COVID brain. I can't remember names of people or cities or like shows. I can tell you everything about a show, but I can't tell you the title. I can tell you everything about the town, but I can't remember the town. I can tell you everything about the person, but I can't remember the name. I don't know what kind of brain damage that is from the vid, but it is. So Dead to Me. That's it. That's the show, Dead to Me, and it's really good. So Christina Applegate has MS. And in the final season of the show, they had to stop filming because her MS became so aggressive. And the medication she had to take made her gain a lot of weight, and she couldn't even walk. So they had to stop filming Dead to Me, that last season, and then resume when they could figure out how to cut and paste the scenes. What was really cool is they added in the mom from Married with Children. What's her name? Oh, see, can't think of it. They added a role in the show for her, basically, and what she would do was she would hold Christina Applegate's legs up to help her walk in those scenes because she couldn't walk. And the meds that she had to take for her MS made her gain an incredible amount of weight. And so when she got her star on the Walk of Fame, Hollywood Stars, she could not walk to like accept it and etc. And so she had to have help. And the internet was very terrible. So she's dressed beautifully and she's behind a podium. And then when she needs to come and walk out and sit down, you know, on the star and whatnot, you realize she is barefoot. And I have severe neuropathy from the sepsis that I have. I have 80% of damaged and missing nerves, small fiber nerves from my calves down and from my mid-arm to my fingertips. So I have really bad neuropathy, and that can be very painful. And shoes and socks just feel worse. And so from my experience with neuropathy, I know that it's similar in feelings because I had to have MS ruled out so many times for me. MS ruled out, lupus ruled out, right? Uh-huh. You know how I know that somebody doesn't have lupus because of everything I had to have ruled out. But anyway, the internet took to informing Christina Applegate that she's very overweight and can't walk, because she put out this Facebook post and she's like, "Thank you to the internet for informing me that I'm fat and I can't walk. I hadn't noticed, but now I'm well aware. Thank you for letting me know I'm fat." And I just loved it because in the show, towards the end, when I didn't know what was going on, just like nobody else knew what was going on, I was like, is she pregnant? Because you could really tell it in her face. And, you know, just I'm a person who you can see all my weight in my face too. My legs are still skinny, but it's just my upper body. Like I say, I'm built like a frickin' turkey at this point, and it's real hard to stand upright. Big-breasted American female with 5 necks. It's just terrible. But anyway, if I were to put myself on camera, that's all you'd see, and you'd be like, "Oh, you're real fat, Jabba the Hutt." because it's just the way that my fat is. But if you look at the big picture, like the whole picture of me, it's not that bad. But I need to lose some weight. I'm certainly not 93. I'm about double that, and then some. Yeah, I'm 200 pounds. I'm fat for my uh height. I'm a whopping 5'1", so I should be like 105, 110. But I look my best when I'm 145. So I would say that I would be really happy if I lost 50 pounds. That's something I'm going to work on, but I just don't know how. I've never had to try to lose weight, so I'm not good at it. But anyway, I think it's really important to see that with all the money and resources that Christina Applegate has, she still is gaining weight and can't wear shoes and stuff and has to use a cane like the rest of us do when we are trying to navigate what's wrong with us. And it just it really showed me that money can't buy health, money cannot buy good health, money cannot buy truth, money cannot buy happiness. And that's my deep thoughts with Tabitha Jane today, right? um so anyway, going back to happiness and unhappiness, we have here the Sandra Rzucek, Franklin Rzucek Sr. Franklin Rzucek Sr. as personal representative. Because what happened here, we know, is that the week after Christopher Watts was incarcerated, after the confession that he gave, saying that he had unalived Shanann after he walked in on her unaliving the girls, which is the version that I personally believe. It's my opinion. People can certainly come in and be on my channel and think differently. I don't mind that. And as one of you wise truth warriors said last night, we need to get rid of the drama and fighting, and come together with all ideas to really fight for the truth. And I agree with that. And that's where I say is that I'm entrenched in the drama, and you guys know that I have been since my entrance to starting my own channel. It's because I was exiled from another channel, as you know, and I try not to bore you guys with the details and whatnot, but a lot of you guys know how badly I was treated and whatnot when I just had basic questions. If somebody has a basic question and whatnot, that does not mean that they are a scumbag attacker or trolling. And I understand that that person is probably burned because a lot of people start out with playing dumb. I get it. But, you know, in our conversations and when I do my lives and whatnot, or somebody writes a comment, they really don't know, or they are just expressing their personal opinion and it's different from mine, or basically all of ours that we have kind of joined together as a cohort of kind of believing very similar. It doesn't matter to me if somebody else believes differently, as long as they do not attack another person for their personal beliefs and they do not accuse anyone of bashing a dead woman. Like, come on. Like, even if you super chat me $20, I'm not gonna freaking bow down to somebody who says I'm bashing a dead woman and I need to go cry in the corner and I can't take this. If you can't take it, there are so many really good YouTube channels out there. You don't need to listen to mine. I'm not creative. I'm just a 50-year-old trying to figure out the interweb while trying to sort out my own thoughts as a mother of 5 sons. Saying, what if this happened to one of my sons? I built a legacy of truth with them. And the things that happened in my life, they'll be able to look me up and find things and see that I was a part of making the world a better place, because there were things that were wrong with it that I changed, and they will, when I can't explain it, I will, because I was once at a point where I never want another human being to feel like I did, and I made positive changes in this world, so that they never have to experience what I did. And I fear the power of any organized um, group of people, whether it's organized religion or organized good old boys club. What you don't understand is that the police abuse across the board. It's just you don't hear us non-POC people talk about it because no one would believe us. It would have the innuendo in the back of their mind that we weren't telling the whole truth. My sons know not to talk to the police. They're not your friend. And I've hosted the police in my living room a few times. Um, Believe me. And offer them coffee, sit down, whatever. I appreciate their work. I know that they're all colored with one horrible paintbrush right now. They're all bad. They're not all bad. They're all human. They all have jobs to do. And if you make their job easier by giving them something that they can write down and close out that case, they don't have to do the work. That's great, right? I get frustrated with the justice system. My son with cerebral palsy was a victim of an assault, and I thank God every day that he lived, and he only lived because of all of the talks that I had with him about what to do, because they tried to take him to an alternate location, and I don't think he'd be here if he would have went. And in the end, 3 years of trying to get the prosecutor to do their job was during COVID. And in the end, we had to walk away from the person who planned the attack being prosecuted, because ultimately the prosecutor didn't want to lose the case, and the main offender is a dad that's in prison a lot and is what you call a jailhouse attorney, and he was throwing all kinds of curves into it. He was not really involved in this kid's life until, but it was frustrating, and I had to go with, the prosecutor saying, look, they're looking at him for much bigger charges than what we're going to get right now with a basic assault. That very soon, the person who organized this against your son is going to be incarcerated for life. So right now, we need to walk away. And it's like, okay. And that there's those things that go on in the justice system. Is that it's not all just, it's not all wonderful. And that was a hard lesson for my son to learn at an early age. But again, because he's alive and he survived, that's what matters. He went through the whole thing of, he should have done more. But when it's 3-on-1 and they've got a gun, what are you going to do? How tough are you going to be? You let them do what they're going to do. They robbed him. They took his cell phone and everything else, and that's fine. That's replaceable. That is no problem. My son with cerebral palsy was walking home from fishing. He walked 5 to 7 miles a day fishing everywhere he could because he couldn't ride a bike like his friends because he's paralyzed on the left side of his body from a stroke at birth. So he learned to fish, and he could outfish anybody. So he's walking home from that, and he gets mugged, robbed by 3 gang members who had just moved up stay with a relative in the new and beautiful apartments that were made for low-income housing. The community built that for families that need that financially. But what it became was quickly overtaken by drugs and gangs. And it's so frustrating. The system is so frustrating. But I've always taught my kids, let them take anything. I don't care if you walk home naked. I don't care if they want everything that you're wearing or what you have. You know, you got to call and have me wire you some money on an ATM. I don't give a fuck. I want you to survive and do not go to an alternate location. You will not live. And that's the thing. They offered him every kind of drug, everything, to go deeper into this field with them. And he was like, nah, you know, I'm fine, you know, not judging them or anything, just like, nah, you know, I gotta get home, I gotta go to work, you know. And him walking home without his cell phone, you know, that last mile, and afraid that they were gonna follow him, was the most afraid he's ever been in his life, I'm sure. And that's why I drive him everywhere. And he's never been the same. He has extreme PTSD from that. Is one of the assailants' parents heckled me in court. They screamed obscenities at me in the parking lot. That's our justice system. That's our justice system. They tried to get the judge to not allow me to be in the court for any of the hearings. And I scoffed at that, and I got admonished by the judge. And I'm like, try to stifle all these emotions I have. You're lucky that I have not bit these people, because I feel like biting them. But you know, it was really tough. And initially the whole case had gotten lost in the juvenile thing, and you know, I had to go in there, and I almost got arrested because I was, you know, asking more questions they wanted to answer. And when it came up that, they called, the receptionist called the deputies on me and whatnot, and I explained everything, and they were like, what? They were like, well, they remembered that call. That's not supposed to have been where it was, because they found out that, of course, the assailants were lying about their age. And so the main assailant was, in fact, 24 when he was posing as a 17-year-old. So that's how it got mixed up, and it was in juvenile, blah, 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 blah. So, no, they ended up finding it, and then the prosecutor was like, oh, my God, how did this go that way? They're like, you don't know how close this just got to being thrown out. Oh, my God. And then they're, all like, okay, this is prosecutable, this is what we're going to do, and, I said I'll get restitution and all this stuff. And then it comes down to it, 2 years later, through COVID, like I say, they wouldn't, the main assailant would never show up for his hearings. And they kept being like, they wait, 45 minutes for him to show up. His lawyer would be there. His lawyer would be like, I can't do anything. He won't do anything for me. They'd be like, okay, well, we'll just reschedule. Like, if I would have shown up all to my life, it'd have been thrown out. But you allow this? Very frustrating. So I've had that experience with law enforcement and whatnot too. And then the other side, which I'll talk to you about at some point. And then, the abuse of my stepfather, which, I get mocked if I talk about. But, when you're being horribly abused as a child, and you think that the person you can reach out to go and tell is somebody with a badge, but you're looking at that badge every time you're getting the shit kicked out of you. And you don't know if you're going to make it through that beating. And there's a shiny badge in your face. Mm-hmm. Yeah, try and live through that. So, when I look at this case, I have to see Christopher Watts as a son. I see him as a son of mine. I see him very childlike. And I don't know if that's because he's got those repressed emotions and he just cannot emote to save his life, literally. When we read those rage texts from her, and he Googles, what's the distance from the moon to the earth? He learned to disassociate intently from her. And one could argue everything. They could say that, by the abuse and the emasculation and humiliation, he could have developed dissociative identity disorder where he just checked out. He could have developed Stockholm syndrome, where he began to love the person that he felt trapped to. Complex PTSD is absolutely on point. That Cindy and Ronnie could get him to listen. And I think it's just too hard for him to listen. He knows that he let down his parents, so he doesn't want to talk about this. He avoids confrontation to the point of literally spending his life behind bars for the rest of his life. If he continues like this, his parents will die, never being able to hug their son again. And I know that people can clip me and say that, oh, I'm a Chris Watts sympathizer or whatever. No, I see something here that doesn't add up. There is a miscarriage of justice. What he said in Wisconsin does not add up. If that was his story and he was sticking to it, why didn't he say so in the beginning? He's smarter than a fox. The last sentence he said in there was that, in grade school, he told his teacher about this trip that he took to China or Japan. He couldn't remember, but he was so convincing with his story that his teacher believed it, and he could tell anybody anything, and they'd believe it. That means he's smarter than a fox, and he just fed them exactly what they wanted to hear so they'd get the fuck out of his face and leave him alone. He's very cryptic. We saw that with Cheryl Cradlecap, when basically this case had lost its wings and had been dropped, and this grandmother with an agenda of her own came out. Now, I don't have as many chins as Cheryl and Cradlecrap does. I don't have that many chins, thank God. But he dropped a lot of information to her that she ignored because she was writing a book on how she felt about everything, not about what he felt, what he experienced, what had truly happened. I could go and write an essay about what I think happened, call it a book, an ebook, charge 99 cents for it, have every hater of mine write a review, but that's not doing anything that will truly matter in the end. The Roos know this. They know that if they can continue to intimidate and bully people who question this entire thing, then they know that Christopher Watts will never get the strength to stand on his own 2 feet and fight. I'm tired of the bullying on social media, in our society, of canceling, whatnot. There's this one The one that looks like Dog the Bounty Hunter that goes around with a bullhorn. The infamous one, we'll say. She's the biggest caustic narcissist, femcel, misogynist you'll ever find. And she's raking in so much money to go to all these places and stand in front of people's houses and affect their neighborhood. Why? What's it doing? Why are people sending all that money? She went to my homeland, of the Idaho area, and from Florida, and she went up there, and she was so cold and everything that she whined and whined until her subbies sent her money to go and buy mittens. It wasn't enough that they paid for her airfare, hotel, food, and make sure it's hot this time. And she requires like $50 for a meal. And if anybody says anything about her, which now I'm probably gonna, if anybody says anything about her, she doxes their channel to try to get their information through YouTube and files these lawsuits and whatnot. Because then, and she'll sit there and talk about whoever, and she'll say, oh yeah, well, she'll think that she finds their professions and whatnot. This one where she was going after, I don't know if you guys listen to Burnt Toast. Burnt Toast is freaking hilarious. But Burnt Toast has done a lot of good quality content on some of these tragedy pimps. And sorry, I just heard everybody walking in. So what she does, she found this one person that she thinks is Burnt Toast. And it wasn't even Burnt Toast. She figured out, she thought this one woman was, and so she went to found out this woman's nursing license, her driver's license, put her kid and everything on everything in chats, and was saying, oh yeah, well, you know what, so this is what you do. You're a nurse and you have this channel, and this, yeah, how would the nursing board feel about this? And yeah, I think it's time for you to lose your job. I think it's time for you to lose your job, and you shouldn't be caring for people and everything. And it was not even the right person. And as I've just talked to you about some of the things that nurses deal with on every day, if somebody dares to say anything against this creator who's getting all this money from her subs, she believes that they shouldn't have a job just because she doesn't have a real job. That she has it, that she has every story covered that's in the biggest headlines, but she does no work to get into the backstory and what really happened and how things have happened. I don't see that she got any accurate coverage when she was in Idaho or anywhere else. I think Vinnie Politan was the one who made the mistake of giving her an interview when she was heckling the Laundry House. Brian Laundrie's parents. And I think Ashley Banfield was like, no, those are hecklers. Do you know what that is? That's not, no. But my point here is that whether it's the bullhorn strangler or the LaRue's, they're bullies and they're keeping everybody down. Why? Why is that important? Why shouldn't the entire story be known? If indeed Shanann was this benevolent lady who just wanted to help people, why would she have ever taken money for what she was helping them with? If in her mind, body, and soul, she just wanted to help people become better, what was she doing to her husband? When she was putting him down, emasculating him, raging at him, and then in the same moments being so nice to her friends? She was very conscious of what she was doing. If she just wanted to help people and was such a nice lady, why would she lock up her babies and put rain machines in their rooms right next to their heads on full blast so they wouldn't hear their mother walk past their room and be able to cry for her? That's not a mother. That's not. That's a gatekeeper. That's a prison guard. Was that house ran like a prison? One could argue it looked like one. The setup, think about it. Prison cells up there, main area, circle area, come down for your hour out. Was everybody in that house a prisoner? I'd say so. How long is it going to take for Christopher Watts to become deinstitutionalized when he walked into an institution already feeling institutionalized? What if everything came out and he found out that he was such a fool, that his wife was using all of the money that he was earning to fund these vacations that she had not qualified for, that she bought, that she had not been making that house payment for months, that he had nothing. There was no equity in that home. There was nothing. And what if he found out that her parents knew and everything, and that NA knew, and that's why she was getting the mail when Shanann was out of town, so he wouldn't even know what was going on in his own household? How humiliating would that be as a man? Would you want anybody to know that you were that complacent? He's embarrassed. He's ashamed. He was railroaded. He signed whatever papers. He wanted people to leave him alone. He wants to be left alone. What happens when a person takes methamphetamine? Look at the crazy things they do. They eat people. They just straight up go and eat people. Do you think that they would want to go and eat people if they didn't have meth in their system? No. I mean, when you see the craziest out of control crimes and people running around, you're like, oh my God, they're on meth. Well, what was in those silly stickers? What would cause somebody's heart rate to be up 24/7 and only allow them 3 hours of sleep max a night? You do 3 hours of sleep for how long before your body doesn't have REM and you are crazy? Your body has not had REM. You are a walking robot. You're asleep while on your feet. He said he didn't know what was going through his mind. He didn't have control of his own thoughts anymore. That is not the devil. That is a substance that was being put in his body transdermally. And that is why Cece had amphetamine in her liver as well. Because the one who was so sweet, who just wanted to help everybody, so overwhelmed and everything, because with a child like Cece, thank God she had those silly stickers to put on, or else she wouldn't be able to control a child like Cece. Did you try to control a child like Cece by putting on those silly stickers too? If Christopher Watts' blood was tested, would it have shown up positive for amphetamine? How did Cece have amphetamine and Bella didn't? How was Shanann positive for 3 times the legal limit for drinking if drinking did not occur that night? These are in their liver. Toxicology reports do not lie. People lie. Of all the substances that were in their body, yeah, you can rule it out that oil went through and got everywhere else, I guess. But when it's in their liver, that liver is the sponge of what has went in your mouth and digested and is coming back out. And the experts knew this. And the experts feared what would happen. Now, I was told that the company that sold those silly stickers let the Ruse have the vehicle and everything. No. Nope. Shanann did not earn that car. if you qualify for a certain amount, they said you could choose from these following vehicles that, they want their reps to drive. They had agreements for whatever, for this or whatever to get you a good deal, whatever. So why was it in Christopher Watts' name? So she goes and picks out the car that you could earn and gets that exact car, but she can't qualify for it, but she won it. So it's in Christopher Watts' name, but Christopher's in her downline. Her whole family was in her downline to start. That's not allowed. Those are against the rules. She broke rules. I don't know if it's against the rules for that particular brand, but it was for any MLM that I was a part of. I think within limits you could, but the pressure then she was putting on the Watts and everything, that they would have to buy up and buy that amount and everything too, because she had them all signed up. Well, who does that? What kind of pressure? What? Anyway. What happened that night in his Wisconsin interview does not make sense given the fact that she had 3 times the amount of alcohol in her system. She didn't come to bed. They made love, and then, he straddled her. And she laid there, don't hurt the baby, and didn't fight back at all. He states she didn't fight back at all. But as you'll hear in the Dr. Phil thing, Mama Rue says she fought back. No. She had enough alcohol in her to be 3 times over the legal limit. If NA dropped her off and she had not drank, that means she walked in there, downed a bunch of frickin' alcohol, went in and tore some shit up and had the fight of her life. And she knew that she was losing everything because she went out to North Carolina. He didn't accept her. Look up DNA hearsay on Neek's Peaks. You'll know what I'm talking about. When the fire went up and she knew that she couldn't prove that this baby was his, she wanted the other man. She wanted the one she was having fun with on vacations. Because isn't it always fun on vacations? Vacations that you're funding from your husband. Look at how he had to go. Okay. The money that he paid for parking at the airport. Was how much? Right? And she just yelled at him and demeaned him and whatever. It's like, great. That's $60 we don't have for the beach. Thanks a lot. I think it was $60. I'm just saying that for. And he had to be shamed because he didn't even have enough money to pay for parking at an airport. He was supposed to have taken an Uber or asked somebody else. Those were the rules. But yet she's paying for a 4D ultrasound when one was scheduled for a doctor to give them the same information 4 days later. How much was a 4D ultrasound in 2018? How he had money for that? He was not allowed to have $1 to himself. When he went out and tried to pay for the dinner, that's what we know was the final thing. That's how she busted him, because she had him so completely controlled that night when he paid for the dinner, it was done. She figured him out because she had him so incredibly financially controlled. Oh yeah, she did. Yes, she did. He was a man who went to work every day that couldn't be a man that could pay for his own dinner and the company he invited to dinner. If she was making the same amount of money as him, it wouldn't have been a problem. Now, when he signed over everything to Frankie Rzucek, the Rzuceks wanted the car. They kept referring to the Lexus as the car. Okay? So what we're going to see here in this is that they got a judgment they got all of the insurance payments. They had GoFundMe after GoFundMe after everything. So you can bet that Frankie knew cars, car dealings, he knew. He called the people who held the lease and probably said, hey, this was my daughter's car. I'm power of attorney for her estate. You know, it's in Chris's name, but Chris will let us have it. What's the payoff balance? And they would have worked for him and given him the payoff balance. And from all of those GoFundMe's and everything that they charged from the crime victims blah, 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 fund and everything that they built that beautiful outdoor kitchen from and they have lived on since 2018, that paid off the Lexus. Do I think that the people who made the silly stickers gave them an awfully nice settlement to shut their mouths? Absolutely. Do I think that the place where he worked gave them an awfully nice check for whatever they needed to do? Absolutely. So the cost of the Lexus, $30,000-$40,000, that's nothing. They paid that off and they have it. The people who made the silly stickers did not give them the vehicle because that was never a shenanigans. It was hers to look like she earned it so she could tell everybody else that, look at me, I just get to stay each day and dress them up like little dolls. And it's all because I do this, and look, I get to drive this super nice Lexus, and I get to be in this super beautiful house, and I don't have to leave my babies. Just let me know. Drop me a PM. And then you can sign up too. And then she can have that, and she can have that, and she can have that. Was she then actively telling them how to sell and how she did it? What was so wonderful about her selling skills? What could I learn? As a person who formerly was top sales in Nordstrom, where I was on commission, and I've sold other things, I was always top sales. What could she tell me that would make me a better salesperson? Because I was top dog. I'm waiting. What could she show me? I never brought my personal problems into a workplace ever. I left them at the door. That's what you should do. And if you are in an MLM, it is the same as any workplace. You do not bring your personal drama into it. She used her home that Christopher Watts funded and all of the vacations that she could have pictures of that Christopher Watts funded because it gave her a way out. It was escapism. She wasn't checked into that marriage. They were two strangers in the night. As you saw, she had to write down a time for them to talk because she realized that wasn't happening. So then there was a bell, talk. They're in the same motel room and everything is at the breaking point. And she's looking at him on another couch, writing these vicious emails rather than talking with the two of them. But she had her daddy there. She always had a third person. What are you like when a third person, namely your parent, is between you and your spouse? What are you like when a friend is between you and your spouse? What are you like if your parents live with you for 16 months with your spouse? You're not together, intimately involved, appreciating and loving each other. You're somebody else. She made damn sure of that because at any moment that he accidentally opened a piece of mail and went wild on her because he saw that he was a fool, that if she was actually making as much as him, there would be no problem making the house payment, right? Or the $10,000 a year daycare. Why did they need that if the Rzuceks were there for 16 months? Doesn't make sense. So again, if anybody can show me that the Watts filed that what this Live Abuse Free website or channel said, where she says that the Watts felt inferior to the Rzuceks, and so they tried to sue for the insurance, life insurance money. Let me know. I don't know, because this is what I can see, and I'll shut up now. Um, that we go through this 8-page document that I found. And it says the plaintiffs. So when we see this as a personal representative of the estate of Shanann Catherine Watts, that Franklin, Christopher gave him power of attorney over all financials very soon, the first weekend. Okay, so we go here, and Christopher Lee Watts is the defendant. The Rzuceks are the plaintiffs. That means that the Rus took Christopher to court. The attorneys for the plaintiff, so the Rus attorney, were Newman and blah 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 from. So Newman, Van Camp, Meacham, and Newman, blah blah blah, from Pinehurst, North Carolina. And then you've got an attorney for Chris, that's Thomas Grant, Brad Hoffman, and Stephen Lambert at the Grant and Hoffman law firm in Colorado. So I doubt that behind bars he had any way of really finding a good attorney that could do anything about this, and he didn't want to fight because Christopher Watts does not fight. She found the man perfect for her that would not ever question her or fight with her. Or anyone. But I had a Nespresso. I have the Nespresso thing. So I had Stormio, the Stormio blend, and I had this Grinch creamer. If you guys, at the holidays, did you guys see the gingerbread cookie Grinch creamer? Oh my gosh, it was so good. If it's on clearance now in a store, grab it. And you can freeze those holiday creamers. They do really well frozen. So it says, plaintiff Sandra Rzucek and Frank Rzucek Sr. as heirs of the estate of Shanann Catherine Watts, Bella Marie Watts, and Celeste Catherine Watts, and Franklin Rzucek Sr. as a personal representative of the estate of Shanann Catherine Watts, by and through their attorneys of record, Michael Newman of Van Camp, Meacham and Newman, PLLC, and Thomas D. Grant, Brad Hoffman, and Stephen Lambert of Grant and Hoffman Law Firm, PC, hereby submit their complaint and jury demand as follows. Summary of the case. This case seeks economic, non-economic, and at the appropriate time, punitive and exemplary damages under Colorado's wrongful death statute. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to read that citation, that will. Arising from defendant Christopher Watts's, hereinafter referred to as defendant, intentional and premeditated murder of his pregnant wife, Shanann Catherine Watts, age 34, herein referred to as Shanann, and his two daughters, Bella Marie Watts, age 4, hereinafter referred to as Bella, and Celeste Catherine Watts, age 3, hereinafter referred to as Celeste. Defendant murdered his family on August 13, 2018, inside their home in Frederick, Colorado. Defendant thereafter attempted to conceal his crimes by dumping the remains of Bella and Celeste in oil tanks and burying Shanann nearby in a shallow grave. Okay, so right here, gosh, why don't I not have the sentencing date in front of me? Sorry. We went from that initial confession that he said to then the plea deal. The Ruse were aware of the plea deal. Nobody knew what the plea deal said except for Christopher Watts, because he didn't share it with his parents until, after it was done. Everybody knew. But like Christopher said, he didn't know he was never going to get out of prison. Apparently they didn't tell him that that's what it means to have life without the possibility of parole. LWOP. You're signing for LWOP. You're signing for no chance of you ever getting out of prison. And he said, yeah, he didn't know that he would never get out. He said that in Wisconsin, that his attorneys did not say he would never get out. So they were very involved. They said that, the Ruse were so wonderful because they didn't want the death penalty. They didn't want this, blah, blah, blah. No, they wanted him to live so they could do shit like this. Because look at this. They knew what the plea was, and what kind of a plea bargain is that? And they changed the wording however it went. when he said at Wisconsin that he told his attorneys the story he told them, then what did his defense attorneys go, well, yeah, let's just go ahead and just go with that and then just make that your plea deal and that you said, what kind of a plea is that? It's not. But they had full knowledge of what this was and they wanted this to be slapped down. And I think it was like the same day or very close to the same day where this was put down because they put the way that the charges he accepted were done criminally to now this civil case after. Just like, what was it in OJ, where OJ was not found criminally liable, but he was found civilly liable of the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson by her family. So he had to pay the money in a wrongful death settlement, but he did not go to prison. Okay? So that's kind of, if you look at it, that's kind of what we're looking for right here. Is that the same kind of thing went, but he got criminal and civil judgment against him because he won't fight. As here, the state of Colorado indicted and charged defendant with 9 felony counts, including the first-degree murder of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, and unlawful termination of a pregnancy. Okay, here we go. November 6th, 2018, defendant entered a plea of guilty as to all 9 felonies. 9 felonies? Where did that all come from? Where do we get 9? This is very interesting. So, we go here and we say his sentencing was, now I see it. Okay, so the sentencing was November 6th, 2018. And this was filed the week after, right then? Because this was filed... Okay, date filed November 19th. Okay, and he was sentenced November 6th. All right. Okay, I get it. So, 2 weeks later, they took what he said in his plea, worst plea ever, 9 felonies. How do you get that? What kind of a plea is that? Parties. Plaintiff Sandra Rzucek, hereinafter referred to as Plaintiff Sandra, and Franklin Rzucek Sr., hereinafter referred to in his individual capacity as Plaintiff Franklin, are the mother and father of Shanann and the maternal grandparents of Bella and Celeste. By this virtue, they are the deceased's next of kin under Colorado law. That's interesting. By virtue, they are the deceased next of kin under Colorado law. In most states, your spouse is your next of kin. Plaintiff Franklin is also the duly appointed personal representative of the estate of Shanann per Colorado case number 2018PR190. In that case, Judge Hartman appointed Plaintiff Franklin as the personal representative of Shanann's estate on October 4th, 2018 by the issuance of unrestricted letters of administration attached hereto as Exhibit 1. This enables Plaintiff Franklin, on behalf of the estate of Shanann, to bring a survival action in Shanann's stead. Defendant Christopher Lee Watts is a citizen and resident of Frederick, Colorado, located in Weld County. Defendant was the husband of Shanann and the father of Bella and Celeste. Jurisdiction and venue. Plaintiff hereby incorporates all allegations made elsewhere in the complaint by reference. Number 7. Venue for this proceeding is proper in the City of Greeley, County of Weld, pursuant to CRCP Rule 98C, as defendant is a resident of Weld County. Plaintiffs have judicial standing to bring an action for wrongful death as they are the heirs of Shanann's estate. Defendant is a felonious killer as defined by CRS squiggle 15 tac 11 tac 803 ET sequence and is by law deemed to have predeceased his victims. As a consequence of his actions, he is prohibited from maintaining any estate action or otherwise profiting from his crimes. Further, because there are no lineal descendants of Shanann due to defendant's felonious killing, plaintiffs are statutorily permitted to bring this action pursuant to CRS squiggly line 13 tac 21 tac 201 ET sequence as they are the lawful heirs of the deceased. As stated above, Plaintiff Franklin is enabled by statutory law to bring a survival action in Shanann's place under CRS squiggly 13 tac 20 tac 101 ET sequence as he has been appointed the personal representative for Shanann's estate. What they did not specify was that Christopher gave him that. All Franklin did, and like I say, I think that Frank on the surface, I think he's a nice man. I think he was a good grandfather. I think he was a good father. I think Shanann was an entitled twat. But I think that Frank and Chris had no problems. Obviously, after this happened and the emotions involved, obviously, but look at how Frank went to go and handle things, probably commanded by the master of puppets, but still he went to Chris and said, hey, I've got to deal with shit. Can I have your permission to be power of attorney? And Christopher put up no fight, said, of course, go ahead, do what you got to do. And they took and they took and they took, and there you go. So let's not forget that the Watts lost their grandchildren as well. They lost everything in this, and their child was nothing more than a pawn in this master of puppets freaking toilet spinning. Okay. Factual allegations. Plaintiff hereby incorporates all allegations made elsewhere in the complaint by reference. Defendant and Shanann were married on November 3rd of 2012 in Charlotte, North Carolina. Their first child, Bella, was born in 2013. Isn't that a miracle when you're infertile that you get married and you have your first baby a year later? Then their second child, Celeste, was born in 2015. 2 kids in less than 3 years. When you're infertile, miracle. At the time of the events complained of herein, Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant with their third child, who the family had already named Nico Watts. Okay. No and no. The measurements of the fetal skeleton do not show 15 weeks. The family had already... No, the family had not. Shanann had brought it up to him. Want the name, but of course she named all of the children, and he could say he liked it. The family had not already named. They didn't even know the gender because she'd only found it out supposedly the Thursday before the unthinkable happened Sunday, and it wasn't to be told to the parents until the Monday that she was no longer there for. So this baloney that the family had already, and it was well known that the Watts were having a boy. Oh, come on. You authorized for this fairy tale by Walt Disney himself? At approximately 1:48 a.m. in the early morning hours of August 13, 2018, Shanann, who was returning from a business trip to Arizona, was dropped off by her friend and Fuff, the one that can screw up a group picture like no one else, looking like Groucho Marx half the time, Nicole Utah Atkinson, at the family's home located at 2825 Saratoga Trail in Frederick, Colorado. A neighbor's video surveillance camera established, neighbor Nosy Nick, that Ms. Atkinson's vehicle drove away from Shanann's home at approximately 1:48 a.m. Upon information and belief, shortly after she returned home, and within the family home, Shanann was murdered by defendant. Defendant likewise murdered Bella and Celeste. Bullshit. Several hours later, at approximately 5:27 a.m., the neighbor's video surveillance camera showed defendant backing his truck into the driveway and driving away a short time later. Oh, well, if that doesn't spell guilt. Defendant he wasn't able to park his own work truck in the frickin' driveway because she was afraid that he'd get oil on the pavement. He had to park on the street. And he was getting his shit stolen. Like, there were reports of other people having their stuff stolen. Defendant originally told investigators that he had backed his truck into the driveway that time to load tools because he had decided to leave early for work that morning. He did not. He wasn't leaving early. That was the time that he left. Defendant also originally told investigators that Shanann and the children were asleep in bed when he left for work. No, he didn't say that Shanann was asleep. He said that she was in bed and they'd had a talk that made them both upset, and that she said that she was going to take the kids on a play date. And then it turned into that she said that he'd never see the kids again, which I totally believe. Defendant's statements to investigators were patently false and were a complete fabrication. How do you know? Were you there? In reality, defendant backed his truck into the driveway that morning to remove the bodies of his wife and children from the home, in an effort to conceal the fact that he had just brutally murdered his entire family. Okay. So, this is after his horrible plea deal prior to the Wisconsin story. And also, I did make a mistake because when I was talking about the Wisconsin story and how I wanted to look at it and see what his face said and whatnot, I forgot that that's the one where they just have the picture of him. So you don't see the interview. You don't know what they edited out. You don't know if they had flashcards of him sounding out what they wanted him to say. You don't know what was edited. You don't know how the flow of conversation went. You hear all this and you hear Tambergler being very inappropriate, very flirty and giggly, and just like, they're old chums. And that's disgusting for an agent of the CBI to act when she goes around the country acting like an expert in domestic violence, that she would go and giggle and chum up to somebody that she is accusing of familicide. That is how she would treat somebody that she truly believes did that? Or is that laughing the uncomfortable giggle of an idiot that didn't do her work, that spent all of her investigative hours checking to see if he had indeed been present for a CPR training for his safety, instead of finding out if this could have really happened during that time frame, as she was somehow given a badge by the CBI of all things, on behalf of women trying to advance and be serious in positions as such. You embarrass me, Tammy Lee. You embarrass me. The flirting, the giggling, the massaging, all of that, if the roles were reversed, it would be disgusting, and you'd be thrown out and fired for sexual harassment and inappropriate treatment of a suspected family annihilator, and not bestowed the title of an expert in domestic violence and paid for you to go anywhere you want. Oh, God, that woman. Striped Tamburglar ass. Oh, oh. Anyway. Ray Watts out. After loading the bodies of his family into his truck, defendant drove to an oil work site later identified as Survey 319 with GPS coordinates 40.216, 24374, TAC 104.3. 666, the number of the beast, 7. You can't make that up. You cannot make that up. You cannot make it up that the coordinates have the number of the beast in them. In an effort to further conceal his crimes, defendant buried Shanann near 2 oil tanks and dumped the bodies of his children, Bella and Celeste, inside the oil tanks. Later that morning, and concerned because Shanann had not returned her phone calls and texts, Ms. Atkinson drove to Shanann's home to check on her well-being. Shanann's car was in the garage with the children's car seats inside, and the front door was latched. Ms. Atkinson telephoned the defendant to express her concern that Shanann may have suffered a medical episode and asked defendant to return home. Ms. Atkinson also called law enforcement to report her concerns. Law enforcement arrived at the family home shortly after receiving Ms. Atkinson's call, and defendant arrived thereafter. The investigating officers searched the home but could not locate Shanann, Bella, or Celeste. Defendant, when questioned by law enforcement, continued with his efforts to conceal his crimes and falsely informed investigators that Shanann and the children had been asleep in bed when he left early that morning, and he had no idea where they might be. Again, Shanann was not stated to have been asleep. Ever. Get your facts straight. Defendant continued with his efforts to mislead investigators for several days. He's not that smart. He didn't mislead anybody. He should have never talked, because anything he said could and would be used against him. He couldn't say anything. He couldn't say what happened, how it went down. So to infer that he was making an effort to mislead is caustic. But again, this is a civil case, so okay. Falsely claiming that he had no knowledge of the whereabouts of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. Defendant also gave multiple interviews to television and media outlets where he falsely claimed that he missed his family. How do you know that's false? How do you know it's false that he missed his family? How do you know? Are you him? You cannot state how his emotions felt to him. He could have damn well missed his family. He could have damn well regretted what he did. Absolutely. He could have damn well wished it, whatever happened, didn't happen. And there is nothing to say that he didn't desperately miss them and want them back and want what happened to have never happened. And was hoping they would all come home. So as to his to end his supposed, in quote, nightmare of life without his wife and children. So again, where he falsely claimed he missed his family and was hoping they would all come home so as to end his supposed nightmare of life without his wife and children. Oh, fuck off. Defendant made these false statements to law enforcement, the media, and anyone else from whom he could gain sympathy. Oh, screw. Gain sympathy. This man wanted nothing from anybody and still doesn't. He was a model child. He was a model student, a model son, left house when he was 18, solely supported himself very well without needing to claim bankruptcy or have any problems of overspending, supporting himself wonderfully by being a mechanic. He had one relationship that was 6 months from a cougar who was straight out of a marriage, went from basically a rebound. And other than that, he was by himself. He was a model citizen of society to then become a model husband, a model father, and now he is a model prisoner. There is nothing in anything, anywhere there, that he ever asked sympathy from anybody. He did not. And this is very, very dramatic. And you know what? It's a lawyer representing the ruse. So what do you expect? They probably told him exactly what to put in here, and they're like, yeah, put that in there, put that in there, and Sandra was probably calling them nonstop, telling them what to add. And they're like, all right, we'll add this, but we really don't need to. It just needs to be like 2 sentences. It'll be fine. But anyway, all to please Sandra. Master of puppets. Despite knowing full well that he had murdered his entire family. Oh, what? Did he go after his parents next? His entire family? Okay, just like Junior says, his entire family was murdered. What is he doing looking at his mom and dad? Are they zombies? Idiots. Anyway. And that the bodies of his wife and children currently lied buried and submerged in oil drums. Only days later, with his cover story falling apart. Okay, days later, it was 48 hours. His cover story wasn't falling apart. And investigators closing in, did defendant purportedly confess as to his involvement with Shanann, Bella's, and Celeste's disappearances. However, even in his initial purported confession, defendant again maliciously and fraudulently attempted to mislead investigators by falsely claiming that he had only murdered Shanann after he caught her attempting to strangle Celeste. Defendant's initial confession was patently false, absurd, and grotesque. No, I think that JCS Crime calls it the Reed technique, where you offer something up and the person who is sleep deprived, stressed out, scared, not in control of their own thoughts, takes what is suggested and they admit to a crime they didn't commit because they want literally the spotlight, those hot white lights, off of them. He was bullied in saying that the confession or the polygraph, did him in and blah blah blah. Whereas if he would have retained counsel, he would have never taken that polygraph and he would have never had that interview where they were suggesting to him what he took. Do you know how many people this means are falsely convicted in living lives behind bars? Because if we see this one roach, how many are behind it of people who falsely confessed into something that there was no proper evidence of? Now, something went down that night. I'm not saying that, but I do not believe that the truth has occurred to anyone yet. Absurd and grotesque. Oh, please. On August 16th, 2018, defendant was arrested and charged with 9 separate felony counts. Thereafter, on November 6th, 2018, defendant finally pled guilty to all 9 felony counts, including first-degree murder for the killings of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. First claim for relief and wrongful death: Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. Plaintiffs hereby incorporates all allegations made in the complaint by reference. Plaintiffs may sue and recover damages for the decedent's deaths caused by the wrongful act of the defendant, because said act, if death had not ensued, would have entitled the decedents to maintain an action and recover damages in respect thereof. Defendant willfully and wantonly murdered Shanann Catherine Watts, Bella Marie Watts, and Celeste Catherine Watts, and has entered a plea of guilty as to those crimes. No, he was given the shittiest plea deal on earth. It was read off, and he went back to prison because he wanted to be left alone. Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, and each of them were in excellent health at the time of their death, and Shanann was actively employed and earned an income to support her family. What kind of horseshit were you fed? In excellent health. Well, we're supposed to believe at the same time, because when Sandra Rzucek, who is stated here as his plaintiff, called the police department, it is in the discovery, stated that the bankruptcy that they had to file was because those girls were so sick. They were so sick that they had to keep claiming bankruptcy because of all of the medical bills. Baloney. When you told your daughter in North Carolina, Miss Rzucek, that you did not want her to return because you feared what would happen if she returned, your daughter, in fact, did state that she wanted to go back because Chris has good medical insurance for the girls. And why would he say that if it was not inferred that, oh, the girls were chronically ill, and that your daughter, Miss Rzucek, was making Christopher Watts perform rectal thermometer sessions with a lot of lube every night of those girls' lives, because your daughter said that a doctor suspected them of having familial Mediterranean fever, which no doctor would ever say to be doing that, because you're messing with peristalsis and you're doing things that are disgusting, and your daughter stands behind him and films him at an angle where she probably had him blackmailed, where she could accuse him of SA. Excellent health. Oh, wasn't it that Shanann was in this high-risk pregnancy and that she's an angel on earth for carrying yet another baby with her extreme infertility and the lupus? The lupus that she doesn't have because when she decided to sell Thrive, it went away. But that she was in a high-risk pregnancy because these high-risk pregnancies with Shanann caused back pain, bloating, heartburn. Like everybody faces, there is nothing to confirm that she had a high-risk pregnancy, but you said it, and they made Christopher think that, oh, even when Christopher wanted to go and say goodbye to his mama, that probably would be the last time, well, it was the last time he ever saw her alive, but that, oh, Shanann could not be left alone without a vehicle because she was spotting and having a horrible pregnancy, and so sick, Miss Rzucek, that you made your little henchman, flying monkey thing, try to kick down the door because you were saying that Shanann had diabetes all of a sudden. And you were saying that she was so sick that they needed to get in there because she could be on the floor. But in this right here, it's supposed to be that they were in excellent health at the time of their death. Well, yeah, they technically were. But to manipulate more and play mind games to Christopher Watts was to believe that they had sick children and a sick, ailing wife, and that Shanann was actively employed and earned an income to support her family, then why was she not making the house payment and not telling her husband that they weren't making the house payment? Yes, she informed him at some point that they were 3 months behind, but oh, they were much more than that. They needed to make that three payment because they could only do that to save the house from foreclosure, and the sheriff could come at any moment and evict them. The HOA payment for over a year. You signed and swore in front of a notary public that you knew exactly where the HOA payment went to when you filed the 2015 bankruptcy, which had very little medical bills and much, much more of all kinds of shopping things. Shopping, shopping, shopping! If she made as much as him, there should have been no problem having equity in that home to sell it for each to go their separate ways. But no, Christopher Watts' paycheck was going so that she could go to any MLM get together that she could find, paid for the airline, paid for the hotel, paid for the rental car, paid for her meals when she was gone and out of town with his money. And he didn't know it because she made him to be the fool that was controlled and criticized and abused to the point he didn't even have control of his own thoughts. Now, what kind of money did she make? Prove it. And she just voluntarily decided not to be making the house payments and not tell him about it and have your flying monkey get the mail so that Christopher Watts couldn't get his own mail? It's not a felony. Want to go throwing around charges? How about charge somebody with mail tampering, mail theft? Mail that is addressed to Christopher Watts goes to Christopher Watts, not to Nicole. Because of defendant's actions compiled of herein, plaintiffs and the estate heirs have incurred funeral expenses and burial expenses for Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. All right, let's talk about those burial expenses. When Christopher Watts was indeed in the Weld County Jail, Franklin Rzucek, Sr., did in fact put forth papers for Christopher Watts to authorize almost $30,000 from the estate to pay for those funeral expenses. We don't know what all was cashed out, liquidated, otherwise granted from the estate to have paid that, but Christopher Watts approved the charges. It is rumored, I do not have a paper in front of me that says it, but I have a person who has told me that the Crime Victims Assistance Fund also paid for the burial expenses. It is well known that there was a very hefty, well-funded GoFundMe hosted by the Rzuceks that did in fact pay for burial expenses. It's over. Can you claim that it was? Almost as many times as you say that she had to claim bankruptcy because of medical bills for those girls, which is all hogwash. Further, defendants' actions have caused plaintiffs pain and suffering, emotional trauma, and the loss of the society and companionship of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. Isn't it true, Miss Rzucek, that you slapped your daughter when she turned 18 and she left your home and never returned until the preceding weeks before her death so that you could babysit her children where she went to go and pursue the possible father of the baby in which she was carrying? That in fact, when you lived with her for 16 months out in Colorado, Shanann called in the Watts to watch the girls and specifically told Cindy Watts, Christopher's mother, to not let your mother, Ms. Rzucek, Sandra, hold the babies. that she wanted Cindy Watts, to watch the babies, not her own mother. Isn't it true? The girls had never been back to North Carolina. They'd never even seen the ocean. And that Junior, the brother, had only just met Celeste for the first time in person in those few weeks before. Because Shanann used her mom like her mom used her. And they played off of each other. But they also were toxic together. Christopher Watts stated that Shanann couldn't talk to her mother on the phone because her mom worked her up. That they FaceTimed instead, and FaceTimed with Frank, being basically the host of it, because she could deal with Frank, but she couldn't deal with her mother. They want to act like they had this perfect family unit, and it wasn't. It's just like any of ours. It's just like any of our complicated family relationships that we all have. But to sit there and pretend like you don't have any of those family issues when you certainly as fuck do is ridiculous. And it goes to that forever narrative that everything was perfect. And it was the furthest thing from it. Like all of our lives. Pursuant to Colorado's wrongful death statute and other applicable law, and based upon defendants' actions complained of herein, plaintiffs are entitled to recover from defendant economic and non-economic damages for the deaths of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, and each of them as permitted by law, as the evidence presented at trial will demonstrate. Further, following the 60 days after the parties' exchange of initial disclosures in this matter, and pursuant to CRS squiggly line 13 tag 21 tag 203 section 3C, plaintiff hereby notifies defendant that plaintiff shall seek leave of court to amend this complaint to assert against defendant for an additional claim for punitive and exemplary damages as permitted by applicable law. Second claim for relief, survival action, Shanann - unlawful termination of a pregnancy. Plaintiffs hereby incorporates all allegations made in the complaint by reference. Here, hold on. At the time of Shanann's death, she was pregnant with her and the defendant's third child, to be named Nico Watts. At that time, defendant knew Shanann was pregnant. Therefore, defendant knowingly caused the wrongful termination of Shanann's pregnancy. Well, a paternity test was done, when he was in Weld County, a buccal paternity test to determine the paternity of the baby she was carrying. And like I said, they never stated who that was. Like, why wouldn't they put the results of that in the discovery? Why would they not? These are the things you ask. Because if it was shown that it was not his, what would happen with this whole case? It'd be turned upside down. Now, I know that Mama Rue said that, yes, the baby was his. But like I say, how would they know? Because if the paternity was done, we can assume that the two people suspected of it each had their DNA checked against it. We don't know if Chris Miller has had those interactions. We don't know. But if the paternity was questioned and they only took Christopher Watts' DNA and put it against Celeste, it would give a yes or a no. Those results would be given to Christopher Watts. Christopher Watts could share that information with them And that could be. But for the Watts to have every reason to say that, yes, that baby was Christopher's, you have to question the validity of it. Have they came up with proof? Have they shown that, they have this that shows it? Maybe so, and I don't know. But the fact that it was questioned enough that investigators took a DNA paternity test to determine it says that there was more going on in the investigation that is not in the discovery. It says that other people were talking, and those things are not there. What led them to believe that? When Sandra says certain things in the Dr. Phil interview, you don't see where the genesis of her statements are. They're not in the discovery. They're not anywhere. I'd like to find them to continue to find nuggets of truth and the origin of such stories. But it is rumored, allegedly, that Christopher Miller walks to the graves of Shanann and the girls and Nico every day and sits there. We know that they had been friends in high school, I believe, because in that Thrive thing where she said, "Oh, I was contacted by 3 people I had not heard of, from high school," and she only mentioned him, and then, all of the amazing pictures that she was in with Chris Miller when she was at her Thrive conferences. She was her best, and she really raised up and really built up that Chris Miller. Watch DNA Hearsay on Neek Speaks. You'll see what I mean. Just makes me ponder who the real father was and what that information would do to this case. So the squiggly line, I cannot remember what that is. That's not an ampersand. It's got that, like that 2 S's. I cannot remember what symbol is called, so I just keep saying squiggly line. I'm sorry. So CRS squiggly line 13 TAC 20 TAC 101 concerns survival actions and states that all causes of action except actions for slander and libel survive and may be brought, notwithstanding the death of the person in favor of whom such action has accrued. Okay, this is where the Ruse get off on that, because it says that, and they claim that they can go and get people for slander and libel and all this stuff, but they're the ones who continue to push out a narrative. When people come and say, "Why can't you leave this alone?" The Rusiks want nothing but to be left alone, and because they frickin' won. They're sitting high. I don't know how they aren't in fear of what really happened getting exposed. But anyway, they see this in here, and it says these words about the slander and libel. They're the ones who put out these pictures every day. Junior does it every day. That shining light thing does it every day. There are websites, there are channels that are in communication with the Ruse and put out this every day. So then there are others like us who see that and say, "That's not true. That's not consistent. This states otherwise." Pay attention to this. Why is this being said if this isn't? They're the ones who are creating an action, and with every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. There is no other case that continues to have this much energy 4 years later. And that is because they purport it, because as they purport it, they gain money. Follow the money. Always follow the money. See who the money is about. Because it's not about this family being that close. Because the Watts lost everything as well. And they're not saying these same things. What happened is unthinkable. But what happened was because there was a stew brewing that went over, boiled over, and who turned on the burner? Who brought the flame? That's what we need to find out. That's where the money goes. Such actions. Hold on. Under CS 13 TAC 1012, any survival action may be brought by the personal representative of the deceased. Such actions under subsection 1 may be brought in conjunction with a wrongful death claim. When you talk about somebody and you say alleged and it's more than likely true, you can't go after people for slander and libel and shut down channels and whatnot. We do have freedom of speech in this country. As stated above, Plaintiff Franklin was appointed the personal representative for the estate of Shanann in Colorado, case number 2018 PR 190. Yeah. Christopher Watts gave him that. CRS squiggly line 1321 TAC 1205 allows a woman to bring an action for damages against any person who intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly caused an unlawful termination of her pregnancy. What would consuming 3 times the amount of the legal limit for alcohol? Who was trying to end that pregnancy? Of course, we know from the very, very sad cases of fetal alcohol syndrome and whatnot. People drink while they're pregnant, and it does not necessarily kill them. But some would say drinking that much was an attempt of suicide on her behalf. Some people think that she was suicidal that night. Some people think that she committed suicide. I think that a true investigation should have been done. I think that the true dates of conception, the size of the fetus, could have very well been revealed that Thursday night. So when they had time to talk, when she returned from Arizona and he questioned the real due date and the real size of that fetus, and he knew damn well they had not been intimate at that time, that's where the rage might have came up. He might have been thinking about that all weekend and thinking about, you want to question me about a dinner when you know damn well I didn't fuck you at that time? Whose baby is this? Let's talk about rage that he talks about. He says that he had that rage that anybody in his sight was going to die that day. Maybe so, but what brought that rage? You don't have rage from just simply making love and chatting about selling the house so you can go to a smaller side. Because he was saying he was going to sell the house so they could go to a smaller city, because he wanted to be relieved of that big house payment, because that's what he thought, that he didn't have $1 to his name to spend because he was overwhelmed with the house. But his income should have been just fine had there not have been a massive leak. And how do you justify all of the Thrive vacations and her saying, oh, she just won them, and oh, it's all paid for? No, a person in her thing, I can see that it says that 2 vacations per year for her rank are paid for. Not 2 a frickin' month. Not 1 every 3 weeks. She takes them along every once in a while. Make the house payment first and see what you have left. What a concept. He wanted that house to go so that then he could be like, you know what? Let's live separately. CRS squiggly line 1321 TAC 1205. Okay, so if that says that damages against any person who intentionally, knowingly or recklessly caused an unlawful termination of her pregnancy. Like I say, the alcohol would have been a factor here. In the trial, they could have said that he was not responsible for the death of the fetus based on her actions that night. The alcohol content would have really been a huge thing at the trial. Pursuant to the above, Plaintiff Franklin, on behalf of the estate of Shanann, is entitled to recover economic, non-economic, and exemplary damages for defendant's wrongful termination of Shanann's pregnancy with Nico Watts. Why are you entitled to recover economic, non-economic, and exemplary damages for defendant's wrongful termination of Shanann's pregnancy with Nico Watts? What relationship did you have with this pregnancy? When she was in North Carolina, she was saying she had not ate, wasn't eating, wasn't drinking water. Her friends had to remind her to drink water. She wasn't eating at all, had not pooped in 3 weeks. That means that supposedly she was not. It's very unhealthy not to crap for 3 weeks, okay? Especially as a pregnant woman. You want to make sure that you are taking in and excreting so that it's not backing up in your system. Not only you, but the fetus is also ingesting and excreting. If she was with her parents for 6 weeks prior to this, and they did not make sure that she was eating, drinking, pooping, and was going around just looking terrible and was spotting and everything. If they were so connected to this pregnancy, why didn't they insist that she go to an urgent care clinic or an emergency room if she's spotting, not eating, and had not been able to poop for 3 weeks? Did they believe her story that, oh, because she's out of network, she just can't go, which is baloney? They've all been to the doctor so many times. They know the way that it goes anyway. And who cares about if the insurance is going to cover it anyway? If you can't poop for 3 weeks and you're pregnant and you go and you tell them that, it's because you're not taking care of the pregnancy. And if you're back with mommy and daddy, but then why are you getting on an airplane and going out of state repeatedly? Why are you getting on an airplane if you haven't pooped for 3 weeks and can't eat or drink? You're not taking care of the pregnancy. The lies. Prayer for relief. Plaintiff Sandra Rzucek and Franklin Rzucek Sr., both as heirs for Shanann Catherine Watts, Bella Marie Watts, and Celeste Catherine Watts, and as the personal representative of the estate of Shanann, pray for judgment upon all claims against defendant Christopher Lee Watts and request economic, non-economic, and exemplary damages for pain and suffering. Plaintiffs and the family permanent and continuing emotional distress, the wrongful termination of Shanann's pregnancy with Nico Watts, and funeral expenses as a result of defendant's fraudulent, malicious, willful, and wanton conduct, plus pre- and post-judgment interest as provided by law, attorney's fees and costs, and such other relief as the court deems just and proper. Jury demand. Plaintiff hereby demands trial by jury on all issues so triable. Okay, now we're going to go down here, and this is where this is stated. This does not say that, in fact, because I need to find the other documents, because this was a $6 million wrongful death suit that was filed. It was $6 million, and they won it. So, because of course Christopher Watts doesn't fight. So they won this $6 million suit. I'll find more documents that show that. But for right now, you can see that they are the ones who put the wrongful death suit against him. I have so many more documents to show you. So much more. So just hold on for the ride. We're going to keep on finding the truth and the facts. And if I find out that the Watts, filed an action against them, I will show that too. I'm not here to hide anything. But thank you for listening. I really appreciate this. Sorry I babbled so much about my personal life. You know that just drives people crazy when I do that. Shut up. But anyway, thank you so much. We're going into a weekend. I am anyway. This will probably be uploaded tomorrow. Please like and subscribe. and share to your like minded friends, not to the shiners. And thank you so much for listening. Bye bye.